Hi, my name's Natalie. I head up the recruitment at Platinum Property Partners. I'm joined today by Alex Thompson. Alex is a franchise partner. Thank you for coming along to the National Workshop. So, burning question for me. You have been in property now...
20 years.
20 years, okay, 20 years of property. Why join a property franchise?
It's a very good question, and one I asked myself many times. Yeah, I've got 20 years experience residential, so dealing with residential properties. And so the idea of parting with a lump of cash at the outset to join a network, which is predominantly about training in that realm, seems a little bit nonsensical. So I did weigh it up heavily and wondered whether or not it was sensible for me to commit to it financially, whether or not it made sense. And I'm now 15 months in, and can honestly say hand on heart it did. I'm very glad. Going into anything, I think you have some skepticism as to whether or not something's going to work and whether or not a model is going to work. And it really has. It's worked for me really well. And I think there are a number of ways that I can now justify having spent that money. One is speed. The speed with which I was able to move through the houses. I've now got 2.5 done. I've 2 done and let, and I'm halfway through refurbishing the third one, and looking for number 4, which is great.
In 15 months?
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. And there's no way that I could have done that by myself. And that speed in itself has a huge value, because if you only look at your monthly rental income, it very quickly makes sense. So if I'm already 6 months up and you take into account the rental, that takes a chunk out of that cash already, so you can justify that amount. There would also have been external fees that I would look to pay, because it is a highly regulated area, one that's ever changing. And so there's no question that I would have had to pay other people to advise me, so those fees would have been sunk as well, and yet you get all that within the partnership, within the agreement. And pitfalls as well, I think, come as costs, you know, in terms of doing up the houses. If I'd made any mistakes in doing those houses, they would have been expensive mistakes. You know, you're spending quite a lot of money to refurbish these houses, and if you get things wrong, they're expensive to correct and they take time. And again, coming into Platinum and having mentors who take you through that process that avoids those pitfalls, it's an amazing economy, and again that justifies, you know, a large chunk of the money. So the speed and the cost savings, I think, are a major part of it, in terms of whether or not it made sense to have spent that money. And going forward, you know, I see that continuing as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, 3 houses onto your 4th in 15 months is going at speed. And I think also having that accountability with the mentors there, pushing you on and driving you to get to that next property and to build that portfolio over your time frame is crucial. But like you say, 1 month of that house not being full is a month of you not achieving any income. So it costs you a lot of capital to do that. So 15 months in terms of your goal, so what is in 5 years' time, so fast forward 5 years, where do you see yourself in the HMO space, and is there any other areas that you'd like to see yourself diversifying into? Or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there is now, and there wasn't when I joined, as you'll know about, interestingly, because having become involved with Platinum, going back a year, I hadn't even thought about HMOs. I then got to know about Platinum, got to know, speaking to the team here, started to look at it as an alternative to what I was doing before, so that gave me a great change of direction, so it answered a lot of questions and provided me with a direction which I didn't really have at that stage. And so joining Platinum at that stage, it was probably a 3-year plan to get up to 5 houses, because I think that for me is a sensible level to get to a point where I'm comfortable with that sustainable level of income. Then I can look at other things as alternatives. Those other things as alternatives, I hadn't got a clue what they were. But interestingly, I've become involved with the commercial course, which is something that Platinum's now offering also as a secondary theme. And now looking at that, I'm on this year's intake. I'm looking at that as a possible next step. So I'll still go forward with the aim to get the 5 houses, but I've now got that next step beyond it. But in terms of my point in the journey, I'm pretty much on track with where I had hoped to be, but if I'm honest with myself, I didn't expect to be. You know, I thought that was a bit of an unrealistic goal when I started, but no, I'm quite comfortably on target. So the goal really, I think, probably is to be up to 5 houses by the end of year 3, and then to look at the commercial side as well as a secondary driver.
Amazing, well, that's fantastic. So 2 more questions. One, I suppose the hardest thing that we can do at head office is when people join the network, they really want to know what they get, what the tangible assets that they get from the franchise, and also the value. It's really hard to demonstrate value for money because it's all mainly experiences, and once you're actually living and breathing the model. So do you have maybe 2 or 3 areas where you can use examples where it saved you money joining the network? Is there anything specifically within your first 3 houses that you could have potentially, if you were left to your own devices, could have spent more or made a mistake, or was there anything specifically that you can think of, putting you on the spot?
I think, let's have a look. I think in terms of configuration is one, because, you know, as I said, I've come from a background of 20 years in property, and I was on the agency side, but I was also doing development. So I'd refurbished a number of properties of my own, and therefore you think, well, you've done all this before, why can't you just do it again with HMOs without any backup? But the way that you look at these properties is totally different from my background, and I think had I not been working with Platinum, then I might have tried to inform these houses with my own background and configure them entirely wrongly. And so I think that's an important part of it. It's a very, very expensive mistake to make if you get them wrong. You know, you're working with these houses, you're taking them back, you're doing a significant amount of work from the outset, and creating a really impressive house, a high spec, well finished house, which is going to stand the test of time. But you want to get it right that first time. You know, it can't be an experiment. And I think that's probably one of the biggest savings, was getting it right from the first house onwards. Because if you get it wrong out of the blocks, you know, then you look at the amount of money that you're spending and joining, and suddenly it becomes, you know, nothing compared to just starting from the beginning with one house. So that's probably one of the biggest savings, I would have thought.
Well, I totally agree, because we have people that join our network that they can't afford to make mistakes. They may have the capital to get to their 2 or their 3 houses during the term of their franchise, and if you make that mistake on that first house, that can have a knock-on effect and actually be detrimental. So having that, both
financially and, to be honest, headaches. You know, if you get a house wrong, you're just going to have never-ending problems with tenants and all sorts of issues to sort out, and sort those out retrospectively with tenants in a situation. Just doesn't bear thinking about. So it's important, I think, to work with people that understand the model from the outset, so you get it right from the outset. And yes, you're going to get your own ideas, and you know, you're going to interpret it. And I have, each house has evolved, but the basics have been right each time, which is the most important part.
Great. And final question, in terms of you joining PPP, do you see that as a strong, positive decision that you've made in your business within property?
Yeah, I think for 2 reasons. One is the costs we've gone through, which I think do speak for themselves. The 2 is, and you touched upon tangibles and intangibles. The intangibles, I think, are hugely valuable and perhaps weren't sold to me as a big deal at the outset. You know, they were mentioned and spoken about, and as I've said to you before, you know, I think as we all get older, we become a bit more cynical, so we're not quite in believing of everything we get told. And certainly, from what I was led to believe at the outset, it all seemed almost cult-like, the sort of mutually supportive nature of everybody within the group, and everyone was assured to me that that would be a big part of it. And it's incredibly refreshing to have joined and seen that come to fruition, actually, to see it to be the case. I think all the partners are of similar age groups, with similar needs and desires and hopes and aspirations, and all want to help one another. You know, I think we're all at a stage in life where we're no longer looking to compete with one another and so on. We want to help one another, and I think it's that mutual support within the group, which I found really, really refreshing. And having worked in London for many years, again, you become quite cynical of people's intentions. And that's really great, and I think that's important for a number of aspects, both from a personal and commercial. I think when you're going out and doing this, particularly if you come corporate world, working in office, suddenly you're going to be working much more in isolation. You know, you're doing this journey by yourself or with your partner. You don't have those people to bounce ideas off, and to immediately be part of a network and a regional group where you've got those people that you meet who have been through it, who are going through it, who you can share ideas with. It makes a huge difference. And from a commercial perspective as well, I think going forward I can see that being beneficial, because I can see joint ventures happening with people where you've got similar ideas and goals. So that intangible for me, I think, has been a huge part of it too. So yes, it's made sense of my joining.
Great. Well, thank you, Alex. That's fantastic. Thanks for your time.
That's all right.